what are some of the most common things that today's AI applications are capable of? And I think the big thing I'd love to hear your thoughts on here is, can today's AI, in air quotes, be classified as true artificial intelligence?
Sure, sure. So most of what we see today in the world that impacts us in AI is either a result of supervised learning or natural language processing. So let me just talk about each very briefly. We talked about supervised learning a little bit. In
Mm-hmm.
supervised learning, you train a system on a set of data. So say you want to build a system that can diagnose a particular disease. You'd create a table of data in which each row represents one person. Half the rows represent people who had the disease and half don't. And the row for each person contains features from their medical record that are important, like age, whether the person smokes, and so on.
Yeah.
Then you take the table of data, you feed it into a machine learning algorithm that learns a function that can predict whether a person had the disease based on their medical record. And now, once it learns that function, you can apply it to people who weren't in the original data set. And that's how facial recognition works. That's how
Mm-hmm.
machine translation, speech recognition, that's how they all work. Um, and, and again, going back to Towson University in 1977, we used to call that statistical classification. Now, we didn't have the horsepower or the computational techniques like deep learning,
Yeah.
to really do anything impressive like this, but it was the same thing. Uh, so that's supervised learning. So what you're doing is learning a function. That function to uh, determine if somebody has a disease or to
Mm-hmm.
recognize a face. Those are simple not simple. Those are mathematical function, but there's no intelligence in those functions. They can
Right.
only compute an answer to one question: what's the name of the person? Does the person have a disease,
Right.
etc.
And it requires a lot of data in order to
Yeah,
get it to the point it can produce
right.
that answer to that one question
E-
consistently.
Exactly. And then in natural language processing, uh, the main uh, the main impact that we see is in chatbots, Siri and Alexa and
Mm-hmm.
Google Assistant, and these actually go back to uh, they all have an older stepsister named ELIZA.
I was good. Yes, Eliza was on the tip of my tongue.
ELIZA. So in 1966, an MIT researcher built ELIZA, and he built ELIZA to simulate a Rogerian psychotherapist. So a person would he would sit a person in a room with a teletype, and the person would type,
Yeah.
"Men are all alike," and ELIZA would answer back through the teletype, "In what way?" And they'd type in, "They're all like my father." And ELIZA would type back, "What do you think of your father?" Um, and people would tell ELIZA their deepest, darkest secrets. But the reality was, ELIZA was a really simple program that just
Yeah.
used patterns to recognize persons' inputs and then took parts of those patterns and created the outputs. And that's not a lot different than what the personal assistants of today do.
Yeah.
They're all built with a set of intents, and developers identify all the different intents. And
Yep.
those are, each intent is something a person can say to the personal assistant. And then the developer is also responsible for entering all the different ways that somebody can say that intent. And what's different today is that there are so many people working on these. So
Yeah.
if you look at Alexa,
Raise my hand included in that.
yeah, yeah, there you go. Yeah, you have a development kit, and you can create what they call a skill by packaging up 5 or
Yep.
10 or 20 intents. And there have been people have created over 80,000 skills. It's practiced that 80,000 numbers from 2 years ago. It's probably 100,
Oh yeah. Yep.
150,000 skills by now. So what's different between now and 1966 is the patterns that you can use are slightly more complex, and there are way more developers working on it.
Right.
But there's no intelligence in there's no real intelligence in these chatbots. They fool you just like ELIZA fooled you.